Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Animation Appreciation Podcast. Today, I will be covering the Amazing Digital Circus. This is once again another indie film released on YouTube. When I first saw the opening with its extremely bad pixel art reminiscent of 90s games, I was very skeptical. And then we broke through the screen, and I changed my mind in a hurry. Although it looks not fully completed with its smooth models for the background and environment, it's actually very good considering it takes place in a computer, saves time and money while focusing on characters and story, while still not being horrible. It turns out that is just the style, and I do not hold style against anyone unless it's just atrocious. And even then, it's a valid style, just not my taste. Can I just say I really just love Kane and his design? I actually like everyone's design. Everyone has a unique and different design. Also, you can see how they keep his eyes in frame no matter how his mouth moves. Given the character's design, this is actually quite complicated and one of the challenges moving from drawing to animation. Yeah, that character you draw may look great in that drawing, but when you try to actually make the person move, things become quite complicated. You even have to sit there and go, how does it move? What would be the logistics of this? How do I keep his eyes in frame? And that is the beauty of animation. Small details make a world of difference. Simply put, every once in a while, as a raised eyebrow, quote unquote, his teeth move a little bit. While still showing us the proper motions for a mouth, it keeps his eyes in frame. Bubbles' transparency is also well chosen so that they don't vanish into the background, but you can still see through them. Also, you can actually see the other corner of his mouth when he's got a 45-degree angle. Tangle's design is actually more complicated than she initially looks, because instead of a solid model like Bubble, she's made of ribbons, which depending on how how they actually modeled Tangle, it's either really complicated or almost impossibly complicated. Going by later scenes, it is actually the really almost impossible complicated because they have to keep what is essentially a single line of material from abstracting, for lack of a better word, because trying to keep a mesh like that as a line is actually really hard. And later on, when they are yanked down, that is actually hard to do without losing the entire model. So I'm guessing they had a burner model or a copy of the original that they used to do that. Also, Tangle does not get to keep her happy mask for very long, ever, as far as I can tell. Zubal's design might seem odd and mismatched, and that's okay. That's one of it, and has an amazing feature. It comes apart. That may be very no duh, but these are not toys that have joints that just pop apart. That's not how this works. They have to model it in pieces and maintain the distance between those pieces unless they want it to come apart. To have the come apart and then the solid when it's together means either there's two versions, one with all the pieces apart and one for when they're all together. That's the only two ways I can think to do this. Kinger's hands not being attached really in its own right is extremely impressive. To have floating pieces that move independent of the rest of the model means they had to group them together and animate them to follow him as individuals. It's actually really good, impressive use of floating animation in 3D. It is also present with Kane and his eyes and his lower jaw as well. Ragatha's design is very much in line with Raggedy Ann dolls, and I'm in love with it. I love all of these characters' designs, and if you actually watch her hair, it does have physics to it. They're just stiff because it's old yarn and small pieces of it, which are very stiff in small form. Jax just reminds me of a modern Bugs Bunny, and I absolutely love him. Jax is also the only character who seems to be aware that he's in a work of animation and in a film. The thing where the flower falls and glitches into the floor? Yeah, that's what happens when collision does not register correct. Collision is when a computer is told these two items are solid and it must sit there and calculate impact physics. Sometimes it's a bit slow or iffy to start with, and then you get things like this flower pot. Without the collision physics, nothing exists to anything else. You can phase a desk through the floor. You can you can put your hand through anything in this. That's the importance of physics and collision engines. The fact that this glitch is included is part of why I laughed so hard when I was watching this. In most cases, it's actually a little easier to fix or restart a segment when you get glitches like this, but instead they used it and ran with it, and I love it. Sometimes it is actually very complicated to fix it, but it makes your animation look bad, and most people don't want to do that. The fact that they ignored commonly accepted statistics and policies and whatever they said the rules are and went with the style, I love it. Also, there are no rules. And as if you can do a style well enough, there are absolutely no rules, and there are exceptions to every rule, quote unquote, everyone says. When Pomni grabbed, and hold and let go of her face, that is a great example of squash and stretch in animation. You don't see it as much in 3D because of how hard it can be to get your model back the way it should be. Squash and stretch is any time that a character model is squished flat or just a little squished and stretched anywhere from a little bit to way out. You see it more in like Looney Tunes when they get an anvil dropped on their head. That is squash. That moment when they get stretched out and spring back to their regular model, that is obviously stretch. Jax and Zubal's voice actors are actually a couple. Knowing this kind of makes all their interactions just a little bit funnier. I can't help but laugh when I talk about this animation. The animation on Pomni's eyes are such a delight and great at showing her emotions, such as squiggles for panic and whiteout when absolutely dazzled by the void or confused or zoned, whatever emotion that was. And I've actually seen in some of the trailers that she had spinny eyes. From the moment she arrives, we can see Kane's eyes all over the place. All of them with the same shiny material. And in case you're wondering, there's some in a window in one scene, one floating around, and he wasn't joking. There's hundreds of them everywhere. I absolutely love the animation on Zubal's arm. Not just the fact that Jack stole it, but the casual strangulation and the reaction Jack had is all well done and very impressive. The way the light gets dark to shift tone seems like a no duh at this point, but the fact that they thought to do it instead of just leaving the lighting as is actually makes them stand out from just a non-entity animation to an actual well done animation. I had to go through an entire semester worth of class on lighting. And just for a quick note, lighting in animation is not simply, oh, here's a big light, it's the sun, click, it's on. Here's a light, it's the light of the room, click, it's on, everything's perfect. No. Animation actually has very harsh shadows that occur naturally. And if you turn on ray tracing, which takes your render time from 5 minutes closer to 50, it ups your it may not always do that to your renders, but it definitely increases render time significantly. But if you say you're lighting a red ball on a yellow surface with a yellow light. Well, you're going to have your big yellow light. You're going to have an underlight for the desk that is the same color as the desk. Told don't light the desk, only light the ball and have it the same color so it looks like there's light reflecting off of the light and bouncing up and hitting the ball. Then you also have to have a red light in the ball shining down on the desk that is told don't react to the ball, only react to the desk, and all of that is just to make the light that is the desk and the ball reflect each other. If you actually set an object down on like a gray table, you'll see the color of the object reflecting in the table just a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. And the color of the table reflects on the object. Even if it's a matte object, it does this. You have to sit there and tone all these lights. It took a grand total of 5 lights because the shadow was still too harsh and had to be lightened a bit more. There was a bright white one for the shine. It was insane. It took 5 lights to light one ball. A plain gray matte ball. Sorry, red matte ball. And I had to sit there and turn all the lights up and down until they looked correct. And it is insane. So don't take lighting for granted. Somebody had to sit there and plan every little detail because computers be dumb when it comes trying to set this. And don't tell me AI is smart. AI is getting good, but it will never be good enough. Zubal's antenna twitch when she's angry or annoyed. Once a gloink has an item, collision is turned off for that item. This becomes apparent when one steals a table and then begins clipping through the floor as it is stolen. Yet the gloink still has collision until it gets glitched. Tangle's quiet question, what about Zubal? just in the background. Somebody recorded that and somebody animated her little gestures, and that's adorable. Jack's breaking the fourth wall is either a nod to how Bugs Bunny used to do it or a sign he's going crazy. I'm going with the Bugs Bunny reference, going by the rest of his animation. The little freak out Kinger did with his model shifting, all fast and jerky, that is what we call an animation glitch. Sometimes when you move a bone system the wrong way in animated work, stuff like that happens. And yes, it does start with a slow drifting piece. A bone system is a mechanism in 3D programs to add digital bones to your model that help you animate by telling the computer what's stiff and what's the bendy bits. Most programs have a way to paint influence options so it knows what's stiff and what's bendy and how it moves in relation to it. It's a gradient, though it's actually like red is like bright red is total control and it fades out so it doesn't, take the whole arm joint. Like since it's modeled in T-pose, it would take the arm joint and leave this big brick straight and just it's stupid. I really hate bone systems because, like I just said, they're very complicated and they actually hate me a lot. That's actually why I know glitches better than the functional parts of bone systems. I had a lot of help in college setting up my bone systems and all my models, and they still hated me. I managed to break them significantly. I had a friend who saw me messing with a bone system and just automatically said, I got you. He tried, I got it set up correctly, and I only managed to do it correctly once. In the long hallway, we see several people's rooms. In the initial shot, we can actually see Ragatha's room as well as 8 others. One of them is a clown that's gone, as well as another crossed out one behind Jack's that we can't see the details of. More crossed out rooms that I could find include a dog, one of the fuzzy worms, a black chess king piece like Kinger, and the rest seem to be the artisan models that you see. If you go to an art store and find yourself a drawing model, it's the same thing as the NPCs here. NPC stands for non-player character in a video game. In the context of this podcast, I will be referring to it as any background character with no personality outside of filling the space in the background. In this reference, though, because they are in a computer, it 100% is a non-player character. The frame for Pomni's freak out when Jack says, "Thank God this is all a dream, right, Pomni?" As well as the lighting change to show us her mental state is well done and delightful. The artwork in Kaufmo's room is all the word exit repeated over and over, as well as no way out in a drawing of him being chased by Kane. The way they have Ragatha glitching, not just her body, her materials, her facial pieces, and everything about her, including her hair, that's actually really hard to control. Computer errors, especially ones that mess with models and materials, I've never been able to control them, much less stop them on my own. I kind of figure it out by accident. The fact that creators used them in a controlled way is the reason I'm actually covering this and the next episode that's coming out tomorrow. When I first watched this and I had Ragatha glitching on screen like this on purpose, I got up and started pacing. I wasn't agitated. I was very excited, excited and impressed. Someone turned a wildly unpredictable glitch in 3D modeling to actually not just be on purpose, but to be part of the story without damaging the initial model. I love it. When you program something to break apart in 3D, by the way, it makes shapes very much like what happened when the abstraction, which is what I'll be calling Kaufmo from now on, hit the railing. Kinger's eyes actually have veins in them. That seems like a no-brainer until you remember, like I said, if it's animated, somebody had to do it. Because nothing by default is really perfect. Tears in Tangle's eyes actually have reflections in them, and you can see them shifting with the background. The nod to traditional animation they use when having Tangle's head stay still until it's actually yanked down, as well as the little dust clouds of Jack's jumping. Also, the neon sign they fly by says radical. That's not from the 80s, it's from the 90s. 30-ish years ago. Man, that makes me feel old. The sign that says spare that pops up is actually a reference to an old game that came on PCs. I don't remember what it was, but it was a bowling game, and I played it a lot as a kid. When Ragatha's hair stands up on end, that is a glitch in the physics engine in the 3D animation program. Sometimes you tell it to have X value of gravity. You're just telling it how much gravity and how reactive the hair should be. And it's like, no, I'm just going to have it floating because you made one weird tweak and I don't like it, so this is how I'm going to do it. And it could be as simple as changing a value by a unit of 1. If you have a math degree, you will be far better at animation than someone who does not, because animation is all dealing with computers and their complex mathematical equations and understanding them. Oh, yes, a barrel of monkeys toy. I remember trying so hard to play that and giving up after I had about a chain of 4 because I could never make it to 5. But I still remember doing it for hours. After Pomni goes through several exits, we see a desk with a computer and a virtual reality mask, the same one that we see at the very end. The advertisement says, "Order now, Wacky Watch. TheWackyWatch.com. 1-800-40" and follow that up with a bunch of wingdings that have to do with mail. $19.95 plus S&H or shipping and handling. Exclusive TV offer. 30 days money back guarantee. By the way, if you go to that website as of the date of this recording, it is a video of Pomni laying in bed blinking up at us. When this video was actually initially released, by that I mean the one I'm reviewing, it had all sorts of weird little things to do. Now it's just the Wacky Watch with Pomni on it. So when you hear this, take a look, see if it's changed. And as I mentioned previously, I'm actually recording this the day before the second episode comes out, so I won't be able to tell you if anything's in it, even though by the time my episode comes out, it will have been out for like a week and a half or a month and a half. Then yeah, I'm going to cover the second episode tomorrow. I won't be releasing it as a bonus episode since this one will not be out yet. But after this, any updates to Hell of a Boss, Has Been Hotel, or even the Amazing Digital Circus will be considered bonus episodes and released as soon as possible. Before I end this episode, I just wanted to take a quick moment and add in a lesson I learned when I was in 3D animation. And that is, I told a teacher that this was a mistake and showed him a glitch I had, and he told me, if you're going to leave it in the final, make sure it's not a glitch, it's on purpose. If you have to make an excuse for it, do that. In this case, they made the glitches on purpose to begin with, and that is one of the things that made me smile. I had my particles set too small on an animation, and it was like leaking through the model that it was being sprayed at. Anyway, that's all I have for today. So thank you, and thank you for listening. And as always, if it's animated, someone did it on purpose. Have a great night.